Intangible, speaking for the unspoken. Born in Michigan, July 24, 1969, she looked to the stars as a child and discovered more than comfort in the silence. Abuse creates the recluse, and her environment made her run. September 23, 2022, it stopped her in her tracks. She had collected enough puzzle pieces, and her time to make the intangible tangible was now upon her. They only make statues of crazy people. I'll take that challenge. Just as there are readers and writers, there are the religious and the spiritual. What some may call God, consciousness, universe, or true self, I call it life. From divine predictions to bilocation and everything in between, life leaves clues to guide us on our journey. I recall choosing this lifetime, knew it would be difficult, but knew it would be worth it. Within is the best place to be. Here is my story. Detroit. Early April 2014, Steve drove the two of us the 45 minutes or so from Walled Lake to Detroit. After stopping at Fishbones for some seafood gumbo, we found our seats, center rink in the nosebleed section at Joe Louis Arena to watch the Red Wings game. I hadn't followed hockey in decades and was more than a bit surprised to see the stadium so empty. Maybe it was just because we were up high. There was nobody around us in any direction except for the two guys sitting directly in front of us. All around the upper section was the same, with the majority sitting lower, as usual. I'm not a fan of crowds, so these seats suited me. Plus, we could see the entire rink with no obstructions and hear each other talk without yelling. The game itself was fairly boring and uneventful, with only a score of 1-1 heading into the third period. The buzzer sounded and drew our attention back to the game. The other team had scored. Aww! The crowd and the three guys around me were a bit deflated, but I said with exuberance, "Don't worry, guys. The Wings will score again. And then they'll score again." They all turned to look at me. I hadn't said much, and what I had to say wasn't exactly something they were probably accustomed to hearing. I heard a passive, "Yeah, okay," from them inside my head. But inside my forehead, I kept seeing the number 3. 3, 3, 3, 3, popping up like popcorn, some bigger, some smaller, some thicker, some taller. I smiled and said to myself, well, I guess we'll see, knowing that this was another prediction and I'd get to watch it to see if it'd play out. That'd be super cool, I said in my head. I'm still waiting for the time when it's wrong, but it's right so often, I excitedly take the chance every time I can. As the minutes dragged on, I patiently waited. Are they ever going to score? The loud sound of the buzzer echoed in the arena, and we jumped up as the Wings scored. The guys looked at me, remembering what I'd said. I just smiled. Seconds later, as we watched, the Wings stole the puck, headed down the ice, and scored again. When the buzzer stopped, Steve looked at me, grabbed my hand, and urgently said, "We need to go to the casino." I laughed. I told him I didn't feel like I was supposed to use it for my own benefit, but enjoyed blurting things out when they came to me. It's fun. After the game, we walked straight to the casino. Steve was surprised how I called out the score like that. I told him I was surprised the arena around us was empty except for the two guys who were sitting directly in front of us. We all have season tickets, he explained. Ah, that makes sense now. Steve headed for the blackjack tables, and once there, I told him I couldn't play or stick around. I explained that my son wanted to go to the casino in Mount Pleasant for his 18th birthday because he enjoys blackjack as well. And we both discovered that day I should not be around the blackjack tables. I play my own game. I don't know the rules. Everyone loses, including me, and everyone leaves. But I like the slot machines, so that's where I was headed. As I walked across the open space towards the machines, one had a strange glow around it. I paused because I had never seen anything glow like this. It surrounded the machine about a foot all the way around. I looked to the right at the other machines to see if any of them were glowing, but they weren't. When I looked back, that one still was. Okay then, I said to myself, and headed directly to it. Financially, I'd been struggling, but had $40 in my pocket, so I slipped a 20 into the quarter slot machine and let it roll. Not exactly expecting anything, I settled in to enjoy playing this $20 for a while. About 8 spins into it or so, I hit some sort of jackpot. I didn't know if it'd stop at $12 or $40, but it kept going. And as the numbers added up, I thought about my overdue rent and utilities. The machine stopped. I looked at the amount and hit the cash out button and looked at the ticket. I don't need to play anymore. I wasn't going to push my luck, and walked back over to the table where Steve was. That's how you do it, I said, and showed him my ticket. I think it was around $648 or $847 or $748, somewhere around there. What did you do? He asked. I explained the glowing machine and how this was money going towards my bills. I was done, but I'd hang around elsewhere and wait for him to enjoy his table games. It hadn't even been 10 minutes since I'd left him there and didn't want to interrupt his playtime. Heads up. It was early to mid-June. She's going to be out for 2 weeks, he advised. She was having a fairly minor surgery, and it was my heads up in case I didn't get a response from her. A few minutes later, I returned to his office and told him to plan on someone monitoring her accounts if he felt it was necessary, because she was going to be out all summer. I could see by the smile on his face he knew I was being serious, but was finding difficulty in accepting it as an action to be taken. Yet. He just found out the news minutes before. He was good like that, always keeping us informed when it could affect our job. I'm going to remind you every 2 weeks then, and you will see. Write it down if you have to, but I'm telling you, she's going to be out all summer. It was a solid knowing, and I didn't want him to have any surprises. He could have one of the other account managers monitor her programs for any major hits, but that was his decision to make, not mine. Mine was advising him. Roughly 2 weeks later, I returned to his office to find out when she'd be returning. I haven't heard back from HR yet, but I've inquired, he replied. That told me it'd probably be a few days more before he'd know. And sure enough, her return had been delayed due to minor complications she wanted looked into. I looked at him knowingly. I'll remind you again in another 2 weeks. And added, did you write it down? I told you this would happen. He hadn't written it down, but silently nodded his head as if acknowledging what I'd said. This continued throughout the summer, and I grew agitated with her personally because I felt she was doing it on purpose to have the summer off. This was not the relationship I had with her, and I wondered, was I wrong to think this way? Possibly, but I felt myself feeling differently about her after that. However, if they weren't concerned, I wasn't either. It's not my job to handle, and I did my part in advising. She returned at the end of August, still complaining about minor things, saying she was going to have an MRI. I'd had MRIs done many times, obtained the reports, and reviewed them for myself to better understand what the doctors were seeing. I explained to her it would be in her best interest to get a copy of the report for herself because it will tell her specifically what is wrong, if anything. After being at work for literally a couple days, she left for another week. I inquired with her manager again if she was okay or if she was having more complications. I believe he alluded to, or I picked up on, that she was now taking a full week's vacation. I replied. I told you she was going to be out all summer. He just silently nodded, as usual.